Even after a disappointing loss in Week 1 to the Buffalo Bills, the Arizona Cardinals must stay the course if they want to get their first win at home against the Rams this week. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in Crossover Thursday. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Travis Rodgers, Locked On Rams. Thanks for making Locked On Crossover Thursday your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Travis, at Travis Rodgers on Twitter, Clancy's Corner for me on Twitter. Two teams, 0-1, close games. Two of the more fun games we saw in Week 1 where there's just a bunch of crap box football being played, which is pretty much, Week 1 of the preseason for the NFL when most teams sat their starters. So everybody getting the kinks out, and some teams lost, even though they were in a position to win, both of whom the hosts of those teams are hosting this crossover. Travis, going into week 2 at State Farm Stadium, the overwhelming theme for the Rams is who won't be playing and who will be stepping in, namely the offensive line and the wide receiver core. Let's start on the offense. Puka Nacua, obviously the name went down pretty quickly in Week 1, had an injury. You'll talk a little bit about that. What is this wide receiving core going to look like with Puka out alongside Cooper Kupp?
Well, I don't know if you're ever going to be not worried when you lose a player like Puka Nacua. He obviously had that unbelievable season a year ago. He was a huge part of what the Rams do offensively. He's a great, culture guy. He's incredibly physical. He's tough. He's just somebody that you love to have on your team. That being said, I think that the Nacua injury specifically is something that they're going to be able to manage beyond just bare bones stuff. They do have Cooper Kupp looked like Cooper Kupp a week ago. He's back, or at least he was for a game. So that's incredibly encouraging. And not only was he back, but he was back when everyone in Detroit knew that he was really kind of the only option, and he still torched some guys. So that's really good news. Demarcus Robinson is a quality NFL wide receiver. Is he going to light it up? Probably not, but he's going to be where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, somebody that Matthew Stafford can rely on. Tyler Johnson is a guy that I think we've seen enough of in preseason and a little bit in that Detroit game that he can make some plays. So that's good news. Jordan Whittington, the rookie that they got out of Texas, super fast, would have scored a touchdown a week ago if not for a holding penalty that kind of brought that back. And it wasn't one of those holds that sprung the play. It just was, it happened along the way. So I think there's some options there. You hate to see Nacua go down. I've been skeptical about the injury going all the way back to camp because anytime somebody tells me, oh no, everything's fine, he's just not practicing. Well, if everything was fine, he'd be practicing. So, they don't add up. So he plays a half of football and he's down. Obviously they put him on IR for as quickly as they did. So it's something. So I don't think you can just brush it aside, but I think there are options there. The options on the offensive line are far, far less. And I think,
they go through the names of people who are going to be out. I mean, obviously Joe Noteboom, there are some more notable names. Like, what is this offensive line going to look like without the key pieces? How many starters are going to be playing on Sunday?
2. and maybe a third. So here's what it is. I'll go left to right. We'll start at left tackle. Alaric Jackson is still serving a 2-game suspension. So he is your starting left tackle. He will not play again because he's ineligible to play. He's not coming off the suspended list until week 3. His backup, Joe Noteboom, also placed on IR. So he's down for 4 weeks. The guy that plays after that, or at least did last week, was AJ Arcuri, who has spent his entire NFL career basically on the practice squad. That on Sunday night was the first time he's ever really had to play in an NFL game in a meaningful way, and he got abused. He was a very, very weak link now. Aiden Hutchinson was the one that was picking on him. Pretty good football player, so that was a bit of a mismatch. So I don't know if Arizona has a player of that caliber. I don't think many teams have a player of that caliber. So that's one thing. So move one spot in. Jonah Jackson was supposed to be their left guard and is their left guard. But Jonah Jackson was their left guard until they moved him to center about a week ago. And then he moved out of center about a week ago, back to left guard, or from left guard to center to replace Avila. So he's back at left guard. He's at least where you thought he would be when this team started camp. Go to center. It was Steve Avila who was going to be there for, all season long, played every snap last season at left guard. They wanted him to be the center. They moved him over. Everything was wonderful. And then about a week before the season, they said, we're sending him back. Which kind of one of these, right? A head scratch. Like, what are we doing? He didn't last a half. So he's out. He's on the IR as well. So he's down for the next 4 weeks. Go one more spot. And now Bo Limmer is your new center. He was a rookie out of Arkansas, drafted in the 7th round. Okay, great. So you got a third stringer, a starter, a third string rookie, and now I keep moving. Kevin Dotson at right guard. He was terrific. He's the best offensive lineman that you have right now. And then right guard, Rob Havenstein, or right tackle, I should say. He didn't play at all in week 1, was inactive. Still no word on whether or not he's going to be active to play this weekend. Warren McClendon is back up, and he was one of the more lowly rated players, PFF, after week 1. So that's what the offensive line looks like.
Yikes. And you look at it like this. So you mentioned Tyler Johnson. You mentioned Demarcus Robinson, who I believe started with Kansas City. You have Colby Parkinson, who's a starting tight end, taking place in Tyler Higbee towards the ACL towards the end of last year. What we saw, at least what I watched, because I watched that game, first of all, it was a popcorn film anyway, Sunday Night Football, to watch those two teams. But what I watched was the running game after all the offensive linemen get hurt was Cooper Kupp catching 4-yard passes.
Yep.
It wasn't necessarily passing the ball to Kyren Williams. It was hike, Cooper Kupp, get open, turn around, 4 steps, turn around, try to gain 5 yards. Is that kind of what we're going to be seeing? I know Tyler Johnson was able to spread the offense. I know the rookie out of Texas was able to spread the offense. If you were going to give me a pecking order, it's obvious that Demarcus Robinson would be the next one because he's the veteran. But what I saw from Tyler Johnson, for me, I used my fab and fantasy on Tyler Johnson and not Demarcus Robinson. Even though he showed flashes last year, I believe. He was a fantasy darling for a couple weeks last year. Tyler Johnson looked effortless like Puka did in this offense when he was a rookie. If you were to pick a guy alongside Cooper Kupp that the Cardinals needed to bracket more than the others, who would that be of them, including the tight end?
The tight end. I think that's the answer to the question. Yeah, it's Colby Parkinson. It's interesting because with Sean McVay's teams, since he's become the coach of the Rams, the one thing they really haven't had is a tight end that they've used as an offensive weapon a lot. Higbee's had some moments here or there where he'll have a nice game and then he kind of fades back and then he'll have another nice game, but he's never really been a weapon that they used. They went out and got Parkinson, I think, for a very specific reason. He's big. He's 6'7". They hit him a few times in this game, but knowing that Puka's not going to be there, knowing that Cooper Kupp is going to draw the attention that he's going to draw, I think that Parkinson would be the guy that I would pick next to be the guy that they go to because, simply put, there's not enough time to use the wide receivers in the way that you would typically use them. I think what the Rams are going to do, and I think you're right, Alex, is that they're going to use very short passes, get the ball out very, very quickly because Matthew Stafford, the only reason that game on Sunday night was a game is because Matthew Stafford's still that good that he can make stuff happen in really short periods of time. And I think that's the game plan moving forward with Kupp and with Parkinson.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, it's still, though, Cooper Kupp's option 1 and 2.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it's not going to be like I tweeted out during the game Sunday, I'm like, he could go for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I'm not joking. This secondary is bad for the Cardinals. And Cooper Kupp was great when the Cardinals had a better secondary and an actual pass rush. This could be a murder scene for the Cardinals secondary with Cooper Kupp. And you know what? I will. Jason Moore from Fantasy Footballers, Adam on, he's one of my buddies. I drafted Cooper Kupp first pick of the 2nd round. I'm like, this is the year.
Okay.
He's looking one way and the other. Listen, it's magic to watch those two guys work. And all they've done is magic against the Cardinals over the last handful of years, ever since Cooper Kupp, rose to prominence. Quickly before we pivot to the Cardinals, Braden Fisk and the other rookie, Jared Verse.
Yeah.
Defense kind of faceless at this point without Aaron Donald. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey's moved on. John Johnson's there over the top, but not a lot of memorable names so far.
No.
Talk to me about this defense quickly before we pivot over to the Cardinals in next segment.
So not only are they faceless because of the two guys that you mentioned, and Donald, more recently, and Ramsey before that, Ernest Jones was supposed to be the guy to kind of carry the torch for this team as far as a leadership role, the green dot go. They traded him 5 minutes before the season started. So he ends up in Tennessee, so he's gone. I think you said the two names. I think Fisk and Verse are the two guys that you look at. Verse looked really good for his first game in the NFL. And I say this not to be derogatory, but just simply as a state of fact. For somebody that doesn't know what they're doing yet, he was pretty good. Yeah. He impacted that game. He gave Penny Sewell the business a couple of times in that game, and that guy's an all-pro, and he did a really good job there. So I think when you and I talk, when the Cardinals and the Rams play later in the year, I think there's going to be a lot of Jared Verse talk. Fisk isn't an interior lineman, so he doesn't pop quite the same way that somebody on the edge might. But I was pleasantly surprised by that Ram defense for what you said. They played against one of the best teams in the NFC in Detroit, and they gave up 20 points in regulation. That's pretty darn good.
Pretty good. And pivoting to the Cardinals now on the other side, the Cardinals decided to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. number 4 overall instead of trading back and maybe drafting a defensive guy like Jared Verse and one other if they were to get packaged with the Minnesota 2 first-round picks. What does it look like for the Cardinals? Is it a big deal that Marvin Harrison Jr. only had 1 catch for 4 yards last week? We'll discuss it. Spoiler alert, no. But next, we'll talk about that. This episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. Okay, so I work from home, and I don't have time to make myself meals a lot. I don't have time to, go grocery shopping and get in the kitchen. I know that DoorDash is there for me all of the time, okay? Game day tomorrow, game day Sunday with the Cardinals and Rams. If you want to just sit around, get your man cave ready, get Sunday ticket on, and just be ready to rock and just order some food, DoorDash has a litany of restaurants that are just an absolute, just click away. So you open the app and it's all there for you. And it's the most beautiful thing. Like for me, DoorDash, Julio's 2, one of the best Mexican restaurants here in Scottsdale. Postino is if you like lighter fare. There's so many different restaurants, a huge spectrum of them for game day. They have you covered over at DoorDash. Use promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 15% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer, terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. Travis Rodgers, Locked on Rams. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Crossover Thursday, week 2. Travis will know this because for some reason I always say this when we do the crossover. Appreciate football. Week 1's already gone.
I know.
This is like one of those things where don't wait until, like week 12 where it's like, oh, crap, there's only 6 weeks left. Appreciate it now. It's going to go before you know it. It's going to be Christmas before you know it, and then your team's either going to make the playoffs or not. Appreciate it now, okay?
It's like going on a golf trip with your buddies, that planning it is nearly as fun. You get to the first tee, and it's like, it's almost over?
Yeah, right.
Like,
exactly.
We just got here. Yeah, so, yeah, savor it. I'm with you on that.
Exactly, especially for Rams and Cardinals fans. It's like, we have no idea what the hell's going to happen this year. It's going to be super exciting one way or the other. It'll be exciting. Another thing that's exciting is the new Locked on NFL is here. Locked on NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, Madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your mornings with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked on local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. You can hear me with Tyler Rowland every Monday morning. We give our thoughts on the last slate of games. It's always fun to do. It's new Locked on NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the Madman Tyler Rowland and the Barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked on NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. So I'll take the lead here with the Cardinals. It was an interesting week 1 for the Cardinals. They wound up 17-3. They were in control for 55 to 60% of the game, and then Josh Allen started to Josh Allen. This defense started to defense, and then the Cardinals lose 38-24. Let's start with the hot button thing here. The Marvin Harrison Jr. wide open and Kyler Murray not finding him. If you watch the film, there's a lot of people who are a lot smarter than me that broke down that game film that I watched that had Kyler Murray looking well beyond Marvin Harrison Jr. while he was wide open. It was his first option, looked away, had pressure in his face, much ado about nothing. Travis, you've been in this business a long time, with ESPN LA a long time. You look at a young wide receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr. What is the learning curve for somebody who hasn't played in the preseason, hasn't played with Kyler Murray on the field before you start to be like, oh, like how many games until that happens?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, and I don't know the Cardinal coaching staff quite the way that I've become familiar with the Rams coaching staff over the year, but I kind of go by what I'm hearing them say during the preseason, because I'll give you two really good examples. That with the Rams, before anybody knew who Cooper Kupp was, he was just a guy they drafted out of Eastern Washington. It's like, yeah, okay, we'll see what happens. And every time Sean McVay would talk about the receivers as a group, he would say, and don't forget about Cooper Kupp. He's going to be a difference. And he's like, really? Eastern? Okay. He was right. Yeah. The only other wide receiver that he's talked about that's coming to camp, Puka Nacua. That before anybody knew who Puka was, it was, I know he's 6th-round pick or 5th-round pick for Puka. He's like, I know but I'm telling you, he's a different guy. So you have expectations. With the other players that they brought in at that position, for me at least, it's, I don't know, half the year before you really feel like, okay, is he in the wrong spot? Is he where he's supposed to be? Are he and the quarterback not on the same page? So for me, I think it's about a half a year. Certainly by the time you get into the second half of the season, they should be on the same page, the quarterback and the receiver.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's tough. It's tough with Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson popped in week 4 in his 4th game. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow play with each other in college. It's kind of a cheat code. It's difficult to compare Marvin Harrison Jr. being drafted as a top 5 pick with an offense that's going to be a run-first offense. They've got a good tight end already. They got James Conner. They drafted Trey Benson. I've always thought that Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to be the 3rd option out the gate, and I don't think that that's a huge oversight where it's like, listen, he's got to learn the NFL game. Everybody knows the defense bracketed him in week 1. He's going to get that. And what the Cardinals need to do is run the ball so well and get the ball to Trey McBride and Greg Dorth so well that he's going to have to get 1v1 looks from quarterbacks. And I think it's going to take some time. And, the outrage of Cardinals fans, the biggest line, which makes me want to throw up, but it's, if you're going to draft a Maserati, why would you keep him in the garage? It's like, it takes time, man. This isn't, I said yesterday, this isn't Madden. It's going to take some time. And it could be this week. It could be against Detroit. The Cardinals have a murderer's row schedule until they're bye in week 11. And it's just something that you can't freak out about.
I wonder, because if they try to force it, right? If you try to say, okay, we only hit him once. We only found him one time. We did draft him 4th overall. Do we have to press? Take me through the coaching decisions, the mentality of the coach. Like, is this one of those, okay, I can't have this guy that we spent so much draft capital on to do nothing, that even if he's not ready, we try to force it a little bit?
Luckily, they didn't do that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that's what pissing people off. It's like, well, I throw him the ball 10 targets a game. Yes. Relax. He still has a pacifier in, okay, in his NFL career. He's a young man who's going to do great things. Just because it's not week 1, it's like watching the first 10 seconds of a preview of a movie and saying, nope, this movie sucks. It's like it has no rationale to it. But understandably, you'd much rather see 5 for 40 or 4 for 50, something like that. When you see a pulse, he had 1 over 10-yard route run. Kyler Murray threw it to him. He dropped it. That was his first target as an NFL player. He dropped it. It's okay. The wide open pass, yes. Kyler Murray didn't see him. It's going to be fine. Like, the fact that the Cardinals were in a game, 38-24, down the stretch with the ball, and they were a questionable non-pass interference call on Greg Dorth away from having the ball 1st and 4 with a minute left. It's like, that's a win. It doesn't seem like it, but it's a win, right?
I agree with you, because I had a similar sense with what happened, not because it was a rookie or anything else, but the Rams were on the road against a really good team. They lost their entire offensive line. They lost their number 1 wide receiver, at least wide receiver 1A. They were behind by 14 points in the second half, and all of a sudden you're like, I think they're going to win this game. It was terribly disappointing that they didn't, because it did feel like they kind of gave one away. But when you kind of put it in a different context, it's like, yeah, that's okay. On the road to that team with one hand tied behind your back, you would have liked to have won it, but that they didn't. That wasn't okay, this team's dead in the water, they're screwed. It wasn't that at all. That was a pretty darn good showing, despite the fact that nothing really went the way that you were hoping it was going to go.
Yeah, and quickly here with the defense before we pivot to pass to victory for both teams in the final segment. The Cardinals' pass rush was statistically the worst in the NFL in week 1. They got 0 pressure on Josh Allen. They had 3 flybys that could have been sacks, which would have obviously bolstered the numbers a bit. I'm worried, like, here's the thing, and I'll talk about this more in the next segment. I'm worried that the Cardinals pass rush won't be able to get pressure against this version of the Rams offensive line. If that's the case, there are going to be sirens across the state of Arizona, where it's already a pass rush that was kind of not taken care of this offseason. They drafted Darius Robinson, Bijay Ojulari, their head lead, pass rusher tore his ACL during camp. So they're obviously undermanned, but it's not a whole lot. And this is going to be the true litmus test for this team. How low can you go with output when you have only 2 offensive linemen starters for a Rams team that is desperate to get the ball? If the Cardinals can't put pressure on Matthew Stafford on Sunday, we're going to have bigger issues down the road for the Cardinals. Now, let's unpack all of that. What are the paths to victory for the Rams? What are the paths to victory for the Cardinals? We'll hit both of those as we roll on here, Crossover Thursday. This episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about them. They're America's #1 sportsbook, so why wouldn't we? Well, we've got something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. If you don't have Sunday Ticket yet, if you haven't had a little glimpse of it, it's like Christmas every Sunday. It's absolutely incredible. All you'll need to do is bet $5, you get 3 weeks. Then with the YouTube base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season game Sunday afternoons, every single one of the out-of-market games. It's absolutely unbelievable. All you need is a Google account and a current forward payment, and you can cancel anytime. And if that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's double your winnings for all of Sunday, 9:15, the pregame moneyline bets. Profit Boost will be live starting Thursday, 9/12. View your account page now to learn more about the boost. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sports book. All right, Travis, Rodgers, Locked on Rams, one of the dynamic duo. You and Dougie over there do a great job. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals, at Clancy's Corner, _ pass to victory here. I know one's going to be Cooper Kupp. But so let's start with that one. Let's start with the most obvious and then go through the other two, what you think the 3 biggest paths to victory for.
Yeah, if I'm ranking them, Alex, I think the #1 thing is what we were talking about last segment. It's what all of my everydayers will hear me talk about. I right before the season started, and this was before, everything went haywire with the Rams up front. Football is super complicated if you want it to be. It's also super easy if you want it to be. If you can't protect your quarterback or control the line of scrimmage, you have no chance. It is simply, if your line is good, you're probably going to be okay. If it's bad, it's probably not going to be okay. That's #1. Can they protect Matthew Stafford? What you were talking about with the pressure, their ability to get or not get pressure, I think that's #1. They don't have to be, the 92 Cowboys offensive line, but can they give him that second and a half to be able to run more of their playbook? That's #1 for me. #2 is somebody other than Cooper Kupp that Matthew Stafford can lean on a little bit. I think Cooper Kupp's going to be Cooper Kupp, right? He has to be. If he's not, then the writing's kind of on the wall there. So offensive line to a offensive weapon that isn't Kupp. Maybe it's Kyren Williams. Maybe it's Parkinson. I think those are the 2 most likely candidates. I'd like to see Blake Corum play a little bit. He didn't touch the field once against the Lions, so maybe there's another candidate right there. And the other thing is what we talked about a second ago too, is that defense. They're not going to take the ball away a ton. They're not going to have a million sacks. They're not going to be somebody that we're talking about the way that we talked about Aaron Donald for a decade. They don't have one of those, at least not yet, and probably never again, because guys like that don't come around very often. You throw up another 20 spot, you probably win, right? Like that. I think if this Rams defense gives up on average somewhere between 17 and 20, 21 points, somewhere in there, they're in pretty good shape. It's not going to jump off the page at you, but the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, had 4 catches. Yeah. Sam Laporta had 4 catches. These are 2 of the most dynamic players in the league at their position, and they really were pretty quiet against the Rams. So if that defense can quietly continue to kind of stifle the opposition, I think that's the 3rd most important thing.
Before pivoting to the Cardinals, is Kyren Williams, was that game flow that he wasn't this guy? Is this like an overstated thing because he was kind of a darling last year? Is he going to be a bell cow guy? And I hate bell cow. Bell cow and gunslinger, I can't stand. Anyways. But is he going to be that one alpha in the backfield, or is this kind of like because you haven't talked about him at all today. This has been about Cooper Kupp in the pass game more than anything.
Last year when he was good, the Rams didn't lose. It was really as simple as that. When he was a storyline, when he was a topic, the Rams really didn't lose. When he wasn't, they were kind of all over the place. So I think the plan is for him to be that word that you don't like, or two words that you don't like, the bell cow. But I don't think that they're going to have a ton of opportunities there. I think they've got to use Matthew Stafford's abilities. I think they have to put the ball in his hands, but I wouldn't be surprised if they start. My number one criticism of Sean McVay, quite frankly, and this is the antithesis of podcasting, I don't have a ton of complaints about the coach of my team. He's terrific. The one little nitpick that I have about him, if a running play or two doesn't work, we're out. We're just going to chuck it. And they got a guy, they are very quick to go to the passing game. And I get it. Matthew Stafford's a special quarterback, but I hope that they do commit to it. And if it's not him getting the ball 25 times or whatever it is, maybe he gets it 15 and Blake Corum gets it 8, something like that. I'm okay splitting it up. They're pretty similar guys, but the Rams pass the ball. It's just what they do.
Yeah, and we talked about in the first segment, pass is kind of like a run, just like Brady with Edelman and all those guys.
Yeah.
Just 4-yard pass, same as a run. Yeah, so for the Cardinals, I mean, a lot of it is run it back. The first 35 minutes of last week was exactly what you wanted, aside from a late touchdown by the Bills in the first half that was sparked by multiple penalties by the Cardinals that were somewhat phantom. Run it back. Run the ball. Get the ball to Trey McBride. Get the ball to Trey Dorth with the wrinkle of opening it up a little bit more downfield. They didn't throw the ball down the field at all last week. Kyler Murray, I think, had 6 attempts over 10 yards. 2 were drops. 1 was a tip ball that was almost intercepted. Like, they need to kind of unlock it a little bit. Now, with Drew Petzing's offense, and this is something that I've preached the entirety of the offseason due to the lack of talent on defense, the best defense the Cardinals have is their run game. So it's hard for me to understand why they would go away from running the ball on first, running the ball on second, throwing on third if need be to be able to milk clock, keep Matthew Stafford on the sideline, and give themselves the best chance to win. But for me, it's do the same thing as last week, just unlock it a little bit, and definitely get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved, number one. Number two, Kyler Murray needs to be more Kyler Murray-ish. He needs to be outside the pocket more. He had good pocket presence, even though people didn't think last week. He took a couple sacks. He needs to get out of the pocket and just it's the Tony Romo spin. Just get the hell out of the pocket. Things that make other teams quiver. One of those is that from Kyler.
And one of the things that with Murray specifically you're talking about, the reason that Murray as a Rams person was never super scary to me is because we had Aaron Donald.
Yeah,
Aaron Donald, it's crazy to sound, he's as fast as Kyler Murray. He could catch him, right? So it's like, okay, go run around. 99 is going to catch you and break you in half. Go knock yourself out. I don't care. He's gone. Yeah. And now, so the quarterback that can run around like that, I think, is a very different animal than it's been previously because Aaron Donald is not there.
Yeah, and what we saw for week one was Kyler Murray was doing it circumstantially. I think he had one design run for him, but the rest is he looked very smart with the ball. He looked like the old Kyler Murray, and that is something that he needs to be more special. I said that he needs to be an elite game manager with special in him. There wasn't a whole lot of special. They needed more of that, and I think that's number two. And then number three, which could have been number one, but the Cardinals offense is going to win or lose this season for the Cardinals anyways, is if the Cardinals don't get to Matthew Stafford with this offensive line that's in front of them, there are going to be very uncomfortable conversations after week two, because if they don't, that would most likely result in a loss for the Cardinals. And that's something that here's the thing. I'm not going to we're not going to do predictions, but it's like, you think the Rams are going to win? I'm assuming I think the Cardinals are going to win. This is one of those 50-50 ball games, a loose ball on a basketball court. Who gets this ball has a much better chance of positioning themselves to be quote unquote in the hunt in week 14 than that who doesn't. 0-2 right now is a very, very scary place to be with the construct of these two rosters.
Well, I think you said, do you guys have Detroit week 3?
Yep.
Yeah, we had San Francisco week 3. The Rams haven't beat the Niners in a meaningful game since the NFC Championship a couple of years ago. The Niners have Kyle Shanahan is the McVay guy that he cannot solve. They just have not been able to figure that out. So Rams are looking with the game on Sunday. If it doesn't go their way, they're looking at 0-3. They've got the Packers in week 5. So that's another really challenging team right there. I know they play the same divisions and everything else, but this is the one that at least let whoever wins this game go, okay, we're okay. Let's buckle up and let's go. And with the Rams' health the way that it is, Rams have a really early bye. They have a bye week 6, so it's one of those things that this game, at least potentially, they got the Bears in week 4, but this game potentially could be one of those. Hey, this is the only win we got before week 5 or week 6 in our bye. You don't want to go into that week 6 0-5. 1-4 would be real bad, but it's a lot better than 0-5.
Here's to this being a very close and fun game. Travis Rodgers, Locked On Rams. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. That is week 2 of Crossover Thursday. We will talk to you on our respective podcasts tomorrow.